The final day of the Rolex TP52 World Championships here in Barcelona. It's all on. Preveza go on the water with a 3-point lead. They've never won the World Championships before, but they are leading the circuit this season. And with Nacho Postigo. Nacho, are you excited?
I wasn't, but now with this introduction, with all the points and all of that, now you've made me nervous now.
No, but yeah, you guys are in good shape. What about the forecast for today? That's the key thing, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a completely different day from what we have seen the rest of the week. It's completely different wind direction. And I would say the day is in some way dominated by a front that is coming very slowly, very lazy front, and should come possibly late in the day. So it should not affect us directly, hopefully. But some of the models see like a big drop of pressure in the middle of the day, some others don't. And I would say models today, we should not take them to the detail and to the last word, because they possibly only can picture a little bit of what's gonna happen. So
that's the essence of your skill, though, isn't it? Being able to interpret the models and draw what you consider to be the best conclusions.
Exactly. At the end, it's everybody's got the same information, and in some way we have too much information, and it's just like going through the information and saying, this is the one that seems to be reflecting what is happening. So yeah, I think that will be the key today.
What's the general approach then with the Preveza team? Obviously you have this comfortable lead in the circuit standings. You've never won the World Championship. How does the approach vary from previously?
Still, it's a long way to finish the season, so we take it as a day by day, and today is about finishing this championship and trying to win it. It's not that we relax, we are leading the season, or we're just going to try to win today. But we understand that there's going to be 2 races, so there's nothing. The first race, it will be a normal race, just trying to do our best and see how it goes. And then the second race, we will think further about the points and what we can do, if there's anything we can do to keep the other 2 boats under control, or what are the chances.
So it's very definitely a 3-boat race rather than a 2-boat race, do you think, or anything could happen?
I would say it's at least a 3-boat race. Allegri is not either too far away, and they are sailing really well. So it's open.
Good, well done. So that's Nacho Postigo, then the navigator on the Preveza. Let's also talk to Colli Parada, who's in the afterguard on the Preveza, and here's Colli.
Yeah, it's a good day. Every time you get to the last day of a regatta with chances to win, it's a good day. So we are really proud and happy about that, and hopefully we get the races going and everything ends up in a good way.
A complicated day in terms of the weather picture. What do you know?
Yeah, we know nothing basically. It's a front approaching in the afternoon, and many nuances about how it develops and how the situation stays. That could be anything from 0 to 17 knots. So the reefs are fully stacked of sails, and
traditionally or generally you seem to have done quite well on the last days. You've come good on the last days. How do you feel this time, and what's the kind of process, if you like? How does it differ from previous days?
No, the same processes as we always talk about. Keeping doing your jobs, your routines, and hopefully it will come in the end. But yeah, nothing special really. We are looking forward to 2 more races, and the most important race is always the following one. So we don't care about what happened before.
On a day like this, what's Ergen's role then, as the owner, skipper, if you like?
Yeah, of course he has a lot to say as a leader of a group, and he's been into this for so many years that he understands quite well what's going on, and he often brings his input on how to approach things, and we pretty much appreciate that.
Typically, what would you expect him to say today?
To say?
Yeah.
I don't know. Obviously, it's a big day for him, but I don't know what he is going to bring. No idea.
And obviously, you've a multiple Olympic medalist, Santi Lange, in your coach boat. That helps a little bit.
Obviously, it's one of those guys that you always want on your bench. It's a privilege we had since he was with other team before, but it turned out being with us for this regatta, and we always. You wouldn't be smart to say no to a guy like that.
So what would he contribute typically today, perhaps in the psychological, the motivational front, or advice from that point of view, or is he purely the technical side? What's Santi's input?
No, he would be an outside mind from all of the rush that we may have on board, and giving us input and calmness. He's a quite relaxed guy, and he always showed that on his campaigns, and he brings that to the team, that in this type of days it's really important, you know, to be calm.
And obviously you know Vasco pretty well.
Yeah.
How do you feel that, what's the kind of nuances of his approach in the final day?
He will be completely calm. No, he's an experienced sailor. He's a different character, as I said, Santi, but he's an experienced sailor and he knows how to approach the day, so full respect for him.
Good, thank you.
And his craziness.
Thank you, well done. So the tension on the dock as the boats left this morning was really palpable. It's not just a two-boat race, I don't think, Stuart Straley. In the light of this forecast, this front coming through, we've only got 8 knots in the racecourse at the moment. Anything could happen.
Of course, so I think that's the standard line for this fleet on any day, with any condition, but all the more so when you have these light, shifty conditions. And as both Cole Parada and Nacho Postigo said there, no one seems to really have a great handle on this forecast. So these navigators and these tacticians and strategists are going to go out there, and they're really going to have their eyes up the course and hoping that they can pick out the breeze that will bring their team to the front of the pack.
We'll talk about the strengths and weaknesses of the different teams in just a second. We spoke with Jordi Calafat, the strategist on board the platoon. Also, of course, an Olympic medalist here in 1992. And this with Jordi.
Well, to begin with, it's not a big deal, right? This is just sailing and racing, and you have to approach like this, like another day. Obviously, hopefully will be some situations where we need to fight for something. But 2 races to go is still a big percentage of the total event, so many things can happen. But I think, like you say, many people here has been in this situation, and everyone's approach on his way to try to be calm and relax and don't do a stupid mistake and try not to lose races at the very beginning.
What about the forecast? It's pretty complicated, if there's such a thing as a forecast indeed.
Well, yeah, it's a different scenario, completely different. We're going to sail with one of the biggest difference, the current pushing us instead against us at the starting line, which is a big difference. And then it might be more open course than the other days, which give us, the fleet, more opportunities. Because so far the stars has been dictating most of the results. It might be more an open course today.
Tell me what your role is then, more on a day like this. What's your dynamic? What's your input? Are you stay in the background, or just the calming influence, or how do you see yourself?
I have to say, it's no many people calm on that boat.
That's why I'm asking.
No, but I think you should face it as a normal day to begin with, and most important thing is sail the boat fast, as we try to do every day, and don't trying to find something where there is nothing. No, it's just sailing. And first you need to start well, then you need to be fast, and then you need a bit of luck. So you put these 3 things together, it will be fine.
Do you feel lucky?
I think this week we have been on a 50-50, pretty even, fair.
So there you go, Jordi Calafat, the strategist, America's Cup winner, Olympic medalist. He's seen and done it all, Stu. But what's your interpretation of what we've seen so far in terms of the 2 teams and their different approaches?
Well, you've seen, really, with the exception of one race, almost a perfect regatta from Platoon. I mean, they really have had everything going their way. They've done the right things. They seem to be going well through the water. And they seem to be making the right moves, and they just had this one bobble, which is the only thing really holding them back from winning this regatta by a pretty good margin. Preveza has been...
That being 2 penalties in the one race and a 9-point aggregate for that race.
Right, just tough to come back in a no-throw-out series like this, and the margin for error once you do that is pretty thin. So they have some work to do today, and they're certainly hoping for 2 races. And Preveza, meanwhile, I think they are just hoping to keep doing what they've been doing. They've shown that they've been starting well, sailing well, and staying out of trouble and avoiding any sort of drama. And of course, we know that Vasco he likes the drama a little bit. And today is the sort of day when
you can't have that.
Yeah, you can't have that. You've got to be measured today, because you may look bad, and then 2 minutes later you may look great, and you've got to be just sort of keep clicking through the process, keep clicking through the gears, and keep the boat moving.
I mean, it is fascinating in terms of different cultures and mental approaches, if you like. As we're saying, Platoon a little bit kind of high octane, big Latino influence on board, but also their Jules Salter there in the middle of our picture, the coolest and calmest and quietest of Englishmen, but super precise and one of the best navigators in the world. And on the other side, you're looking at the heart of the Privezza machine, if you like. Very, very are quite Kiwi at the heart, with John Cutler and Hamish Pepper, and a different approach.
Yeah, of course. Anyone who's watched sailing over the last 20 years knows the Kiwi approach, which is very understated, very quiet. You never get too high, you never get too low. It's just another day of sailing out there, which we heard a little bit of that from Jordi Calafat. Yeah. And I think you mentioned Jules and Jordi, and I think their job is going to be to keep Vasco focused and keep him doing what he does best, which is instinctively look for that wind and the right position to put the boat in to win the race. So if they can sort of manage that and get the best out of that teamwork. I mean, what a potential they have back there, right? Talent they have back there. I mean, of course, across the fleet there's talent, but that is really exceptional when you have Vasco Vescado, you have Jordi Calafat, and you have Jules Salter all on the same boat, sort of discussing how to win the race. Yeah, and Dirk de Ridder. I mean, the championships are all on and on.
Yeah, it's fantastic. It's like Disneyland. But anyway, it's not just a two-boat race, but we're going to go on the water, hopefully, and hear from Tor Tomlinson. Obviously, we can see one or two of the elements that we've talked about in our briefings this morning, this chop that we're expecting in this wind direction. But Tor, how's it looking where you are?
Morning, Andy and Stu. I can say that today. We're out here bright and early. Yeah, it's quite interesting conditions, actually. It's going to be really tricky for these teams. When we first got out, the breeze was down a little bit, maybe 6 or 7 knots. It started to pick up a little bit again. And we've got the breeze in from the northeast, and obviously this strong current that's coming up from the south as well. And I was speaking to some of the navigators over the week, and they were saying, the current has been stronger than they were expecting. They were expecting 0.7, 0.8 knots, but actually now we've got 1.2, 1.3, which means the current's going to be pushing the teams down the start line as opposed to pushing them back off the start like they were yesterday. So a lot to think about. Even that first step, with the start, they're going to be totally different game plan. And then off the start line, with this sea state, it's going to make it really difficult to hold those lanes, and the drivers are really, really going to have their work cut out trying to hold the lane and keep the boats going with the chop that they're going into. So yeah, it's going to be an interesting one. Maria's bringing the warning signal up in about a minute and a half, 2 minutes, and yeah, we'll be ready to go on time.
That would be nice. The big question to a certain extent is whether we get 2 races away. But the teams really can't think about that, Stu. It's all about focusing on the first race, getting off the line, and that could indeed, the race could be decided off the start line with the tide just pushing, the tidal current just pushing a little bit more than we've seen with them rather than against them.
Yeah, I don't think you even focus on the first race. I think you have to focus on the first start and the first 3 minutes of that beat, because you really, as you mentioned, we saw the first day with the current working against them. Teams were a little bit off the line. They were struggling a little bit with their time and distance. They got better yesterday, but today the whole platform changes. Now this current is going to be pushing you over the line. You got a lot of waves. Acceleration is going to be a challenge. I think getting the time and distance right today is going to be particularly tricky. The software that they have built in, it can only do so much. At some point, there's a human element here in calling the distance to the line when you start trimming the sails on and when you start really accelerating. Because in the wave we saw out there, you saw those tenders sort of really bouncing around the race boats. The sea state is significantly more confused and more extreme than it was the last couple days, even though the wind is actually down.
Indeed, so we talk about the science and the precision of the black boxes that determine exactly how close to the start line, but it could come down just to the bowman, and the bowman's called such a key role today, Stu.
Yeah, maybe a little bit old school. I mean, I think sailing has gone so much in the way of these electronic starting devices where you ping both ends of the line, and it can tell you exactly how far you have to go to the line. But what that device can't really tell you is how much time you need to accelerate the boat, because that is going to be down to the helmsman and the trimmers working together to make sure they have, one, the space on the line to do so, and then the timing right to put the bow down a little bit, trim the sails on, and get that 10 or 15 second ramp up that gets the boat to top speed when the gun sounds. Being at top speed and on the line, crucial today, because with the light air and the lump, the lanes, there are fewer lanes on the course, and in heavier air, you just have a lot of time.
Quick look on board there with the Gladiator there. Those keen observers of the sport will realize that Tony Langley is not on board, and the tactician there just to the left of Guige Parada is none other than Ray Davis from Emirates Team New Zealand, enjoying his day off.
And another big change you'll notice here, they've gone from the wheel, which they had the first couple days, to the tiller. I mean, the shore crew was apparently a little busy last night. They had to remove the pedestals, put the tiller on there.
Yeah, it doesn't take that long, but we did catch up with Ray Davis just before he went on the water, enjoying his day off, and this was Ray.
Yeah, Saturday off. What else would you want to do than go sailing? It's been a while since I've been in this class, or any other class for that matter, so really looking forward to it.
And a big day.
Yeah, big day. Tony's got the team in great shape. They're on the podium. I'm just trying to hopefully keep them on the podium if all goes well. Tony had a last-minute family wedding to get to, so I got a call up at about 8 o'clock this morning, so we're on.
We're trying to decide about the last-minute family wedding, what the key elements of that are, but we'll leave that. We'll park that one there. But great to see Ray back in the fleet. Going way back history with Team New Zealand, and Mean Machine way back. Sailed on Gladiator many times before. Be quite interesting to see what influence he has. I think he's just trying to be a safe pair of hands.
Well, we're back to the safe pair of hands again, aren't we? I'm sure Ray would take that as a compliment.
He would take that as a compliment, same as Ed Baird will.
Yeah, Ray, and if you're going to call in anyone to come help you out, you couldn't have a better guy than Ray Davis. Such a nice guy, easy to get along with, and just so talented as well.
And he loves it. You say it's his day off, but there's not many things he would rather be doing than being out competing back in the TP52 class.
Right, and Tony served him up the perfect buffet, right? They're sitting there right on the outside of the top two, in the top three. I mean, all to play for, and you have a chance to go out there and really see what you can do.
Indeed, they're 7 points off the leader and 26 points compared to 19 for Pravetsa. Platoon on 22, Gladiator 26, Allegra 27, and Phoenix on 29. So if we get a two-race day, then the situation could be very different at the end of the day. And of course, the World Championship title is at stake today. And the teams which have won World Championships in the past, Platoon have 2 titles, 2017, 2019. Quantum Racing, I think, have 4. But they're a little bit out of the picture this time. They are the defending champions, won in Cascais last year, and of course also in the mix, if you like, Sled, who won the world title in 2021. Sled all wearing white shirts today. A little bit of a change, maybe looking for a little bit more luck there in 6th place on 34 points. But it's not all the All Blacks, it's the All Whites on Sled, which is very much an understated colour scheme anyway. So anyway, Stu, how do you view this start? We're at a minute and a half before the start.
Well, we'll see the setup here maybe a little bit later with boats getting into position we've seen over the last couple days, which might indicate sort of a lack of confidence in exactly when to pull the trigger and get going. The first couple days teams were very happy to line up a minute 30 or even more out and just start going. But here we are, we got a minute 14. We're getting the setup here. It looks to be a heavily right-favored line here. I mean, a right-favored group. They look to be all fighting for that boat, which probably isn't a surprise given that the forecast is for this breeze to go to the right.
Tor, what are you saying? We've got 50 seconds before the start. Just give us your very quick update.
Yeah, we're stacked up quite far to the right. Obviously, they seem a little bit further away from the line at the moment, but that tide is really pushing them towards them down there. It's going to be an interesting one. I can see Platoon quite far back in that top pack, and Gladiator coming in close at the boat.
So Quantum towards the pin end of the line with Phoenix. Let's see Pravetsa lining up towards the committee boat end of the line with Platoon 2 boats above them. Gladiator lining up at the committee boat end of the line.
The Gladiator once again at the pin end. So
Committee boat end.
sorry, the committee boat end, exactly. We saw that yesterday a couple of times, and they seem to like that again, and they appear to have some room to work there. Looks like they're going to have a nice start. Here we go. Oh, very well. Very even start. Probably the most even start we've seen so far this race, this regatta.
Gladiator start quite nicely, but Quantum in the foreground of our picture. A really nice time on distance, keeping it super simple, giving themselves runway to lure to build speed into. Immediately, Stu, we see this chop we've been talking about.
Yeah, we will.
Kicked up with the change in breeze and the current, wind against current.
And we will see who has got their setup right and who does not pretty quickly here with a lineup like this. You can see everyone sort of got their bows lined up here, and quickly you're going to see some of these boats maybe edge out a little bit, and then the boats that don't are going to be, maybe trying to figure out what their exit strategy is.
Indeed, straight away we're seeing Preveza and Platoon side by side, as you might expect, but Allegra seemed to be dropping back just a little bit. It's so important to have the right setup for these conditions, and just be a little bit harder to drive through this chop, but certainly Platoon and Preveza side by side. Be interesting to see whether Preveza try to impose themselves directly on Platoon with this 3-point lead, gambling to a certain extent if whether we just get 1 or 2 races. But Quantum Racing, powered by American Magic, are our early leaders, having started off the pin end of the line. Have Phoenix just to weather.
And the nice, there's a certain freedom, especially in this lumpy conditions, and starting to lure to the group enables you when you want to, when you feel like you need a little bit of speed, you can put the bow down and accelerate. So Terry Hutchinson maybe giving helmsman Harry Melgus a little bit more freedom to operate here and just to let the boat do what it does. So we'll see if that ends up. They currently are the leader, but not much in it. And it's still early days. You can see the lineup there. It still looks very even across the fleet.
But in the meantime, Preveza and Platoon side by side in 7th and 8th. Again, it's always this kind of balance of risk and reward, particularly for Preveza, who have this big margin, 25 points at the top of the season standings. They may be tempted to try and keep Platoon under wraps in their position and protect a potential World Championship title, but at the same time they don't want to spend any of that lead at all prior to going to Puerto Portals next month for the final regatta of the season.
American Magic appears to be losing a little bit of gauge to the boats above them. Maybe steering a little bit lower, trying to steer a little bit faster, but the boat just up from them, Phoenix, looks like they actually are going quite well. They've been able to push out ahead of the 2 boats on their hip. Appears to be Sled maybe in Value there, the 2 white boats. Yeah, there we go. Sled on top, Value 27, and then Preveza on top of them.
Meantime, Gladiator have taken the early tack out to the right, as we expected they might do. Just talk to us about that a little bit, Stu, because that was something that you were discussing with some of the afterguards, the benefits or not of tacking too early and going out to the right side.
Yeah, it was a very interesting conversation at the Quantum briefing this morning, and they were talking about the situation where you want the right side. You feel that the right is going to come in, but you don't want to go too early, because by doing that, you effectively put yourself into that corner. If all the fleet comes with you,
and you take the fleet, or
you take the fleet with you.
Some members of the fleet with you early on.
Yeah.
Then everybody gravitates to that side, and you lose any potential gain. Where it's better to just wait a couple of minutes, and then go out, as indeed we're seeing with the Gladiator. But
yeah, Nick Rogers was saying that for Value, the tactician there. He was saying, you may want the right, but the importance early on is to push the game to the left. Give yourself a little bit more room to operate so that when you do come back to the right, and again, the key thing here is not necessarily getting to the right corner, but staying to the right of the fleet. And when you're able to do that, you then are able to still maximize the benefit of the favored side of the course, you think, without also minimizing your risk, right? And that's the sort of the risk-reward conversation is something that's going on in the head of all tacticians all the time in sailing. How much do you want to gamble on what you might think? And we can see Gladiator out here. Well, they've already come back, so they feel like they've got something, and now Ray Davies is saying, okay, let's take advantage of what we have maybe, and let's bring it back to the fleet and see if we can sort of consolidate this before we get too dangerous. Or perhaps he's saying it's not working, and we've got to minimize our mistakes here, because currently it appears that the boats down on the left side of the course are the ones winning out.
Indeed, and the split there between Preveza and Platoon. Preveza we're seeing in 3rd and quite nicely positioned relative to the boats round about them. Meantime, Vasco and Jordi Calafat have taken the platoon to the right. But as Stu was just saying, it seems like Quantum either just trying to sail a little bit lower and faster. For sure, Phoenix seemed to have a little bit of a high mode coming off the line and going quite nicely in this chop. So Quantum roll into their tack. They are our most left-sided boat. Potentially.
Yeah, we'll get an interesting.
Top
I mean,
two,
I think,
top three, but we'll go on, Stu.
well, we're just saying Phoenix here has a choice. Whether do they want to sit on Quantum and sort of take this lane away from them, or do they want to keep going? They feel there's more to be had out to this left side.
At the same time, coming into the equation, Preveza just pretty much bow to bow with Quantum. What does Hamish Pepper do in this situation? Look at that chop compared to the smooth water by comparison that we've had over the first 2 days of racing.
Looks like Preveza putting themselves in a position to make life a little difficult here for Harry Melgus and Terry on the Quantum boat. That's a tough lane to live in there.
It is, but I guess that equally they don't want to get too separated away from platoon.
Yeah. You can just see that the guys getting up on the rail a lot more challenging than it was the day earlier, where they look like ballet dancers moving across the boat. And today the chop and the way the boats move, it's just keeping your footing. Getting across the boat safely is a challenge, and that most of the time it doesn't really come into play. But there's always a crucial moment in a jibe or attack if one sort of missed foot placement, and all of a sudden everything can go haywire.
Indeed. Well, it seems like the right is coming in slightly stronger for the moment. Gladiator and platoon over on that side. So remember, in terms of points, Gladiator 7 points behind Preveza. So a big ask for them to finish on top of the table.
Looking at the tracks here on the tracker, we heard this is an unsettled forecast, but the breeze appears to be holding fairly steady at this point. We do not see a lot of those ups or downs that would indicate the breeze is very shifty. It's been pretty much locked in. Now, there may be a sort of a gradual trend to the right, and you may see teams sort of favoring it later in the race just to take advantage of that. But for the moment, pretty steady, and it's all about how fast you're going.
Indeed.
Quantum coming back out. They couldn't live there on Preveza's hip. They have to come back out and find a lane here.
Indeed, just watching Preveza Phoenix going back. It'll be interesting to see how they do converging with Gladiator and platoon. But Tor, what are you seeing from your vantage point?
It's quite a complex race course at the moment out here. I think the waves are making it really difficult for people. And if you go into attack and just hit one of those waves badly, then it's taking a little while to get up to speed. And actually, I think the teams that are going to gain here are ones that are minimizing those maneuvers and getting the boats up to speed and staying there. I'm really liking what Gladiator are doing out to the right-hand side of the course. I'm not surprised to see them out there. When I was chatting with Juan Vila, the navigator and meteorologist on Intralodge this morning, he was saying that he is expecting the breeze to go right throughout the day, and so the right hand side of the race course would be the stronger side, which we did see quite a split in the fleet just off the start line, but yeah, that right really starting to come strong. We saw platoon coming back briefly, and I think that might have been just to stay in touch with Preveza. They don't want to get too far away just in case there's gains to be made somewhere else. But this is a totally different conditions that we've had the last 2 days, and I think no one will be kind of sticking it out there and taking a big risk because they're not really sure exactly what's happening on this race course. It'll be interesting to see who comes out on top. I think it's the right for me at the moment. What do you think?
I think at the moment it's all to play for. It's absolutely even in terms of points between Platoon and Preveza. Platoon in second, taking the game to Preveza the World Championship leaders going onto the water by 3 points. And at the moment there's 3-4 places between Platoon, 3 places between Platoon and Preveza, and about 100 meters or so. In the meantime, Gladiator doing nice work.
Yeah.
No, it's
Ray Davies showing the definition of a safe pair of hands, which is find the early advantage, come back, cross the fleet, and consolidate. And he is now sticking himself directly between the fleet and the mark.
And I mean, one of the keys there is they're on the Platoon's face pretty much, and whether that may open an opportunity to Preveza, who are kind of in the traffic really just now, aren't they?
There's a lot still to come on this leg. You know, you have boats, and it looks like now we see Quantum here on the far left of the fleet. The breeze appears to maybe be bending back their favor a little bit. This left shift maybe coming in, left phase, and that could suddenly put a situation in where, you know, maybe Gladiator is able to sneak in front, and then Quantum and Phoenix get in between Platoon and Preveza and Gladiator, and suddenly Gladiator is back in the mix for the overall championship. So
indeed, but Gladiator doing all they can. For the meantime, Phoenix have done quite well, just coming back from their left-hand position. But a nice open lane for Ed Baird and the South African team on Phoenix. I mean, again, Stu, talk to me just a little bit about Quantum, who started on that pin end of the line. Seem to have everything in their favour, top 2, top 3. And now just don't seem to be getting the speed in these choppy conditions.
Well, you know, hard to say whether it's the speed or maybe the breeze hasn't come their way yet. You know, we talked about the importance of being patient in this day, and you know, Terry Hutchinson knows that well. He's not afraid to sort of go out there and maybe not look so great for the first half of the beat, because what's really important is how you look at the end of the beat. And you know, right now they are, you know, 5 degrees of left shift away from coming in here in the top 2 or 3 boats, if not in front. They have a fair amount of leverage. And you know, maybe they're sort of picking things up a little bit and finding their groove. But this is, you know, sailing in chop is very different in an AC40 than in a TP52. So, you know, this maybe is sort of part of the learning curve for Harry Melgis and how to keep this boat going in sort of relatively underpowered conditions and a very sloppy seaway.
Indeed, but at the moment the advantage is just with Platoon in terms of the pursuit of the world title, as it were. It's so close. It's really going to be about how the breeze plays out over the next few minutes, whether there's any advantage coming in on the left.
I tell you, I am seeing this the top of this beat being a real street fight here. I think that the boats out on the starboard ley line, they are, you know, pushing out maybe a little bit, not to say overlaid, but they're giving themselves a cushion because you don't want to cut it too fine in this chop. You're not going to see boats able to pinch up the way they were yesterday and make the mark, you know, with a long sort of slow, sort of under target run.
They have a tide in the lee bow though, really, don't they?
They do, but they also have a lot of waves, and it's very easy to start going sideways.
So we are on the final approach for the windward mark. Phoenix just setting up just a little bit low of ley line, but as we said, tide should be carrying them up to the mark.
Here comes Quantum coming in, you know, about as high as you can get on the port ley line thanks to the keep away mark. I think they're going to be in a nice position to tack here maybe into third place. Maybe behind. They're going to go behind Platoon here, so they're going to slot into fourth. But it's still, Phoenix is still working really hard to get to this mark. They are struggling. I don't think they're going to make it. They're going to hit a couple waves here, Andy. They're going to go sideways. I do not know if they're going to make this mark. And they're also going to make life difficult for Gladiator, because Gladiator is going to have to get around them. Platoon could be the real benefactor here. Here we go. And then Phoenix, look. Oh boy, that was close.
I think they both made it, but credit to Tony Norris and the afterguard, but that was really
again now all that does.
Bomb time.
Okay. I'll take your word for that, Andy. But what it does do effectively really is compress the fleet, right?
Yeah.
When the first couple boats stop, the advantage they have of going around first suddenly just evaporates, and now all the fleet comes in right behind them, and you're going to have a setup where a very competitive run here.
But Platoon round in third with In fact, Alpha Plus, I think, not too far behind. Provezza in the end, actually. Gladiator. Yeah, Gladiator certainly got round third. But I think Provezza probably fifth. But Platoon really taking the challenge back at Provezza just now. As you said, Stu, just the leaders really much more compressed and compact than they might have been, and that may be to Platoon's advantage to some degree.
Ray Davies doing a nice job here, positioning himself over the top, and Phoenix is in a bit of a tough spot because once they get rolled, if they get rolled by Gladiator, it's just going to be a succession of boats rolling over the top of them, and they may have to jibe away whether they like it or not.
Indeed. Let's see at the offset mark.
Tightest windward mark we've had yet, just a minute between all 10 boats. Yeah, and as we say this, the tracker's showing us that Phoenix has jibed away. Just an impossible situation to live in there, right? I think you're better off to cut your losses and look for some fresh air on port jibe.
In the meantime, the advantage is very much with Platoon in this race, and the balance potentially swinging in favour of the 2 times world champions. But there's a long way to go. Provezza in sixth, Platoon in second.
Still going back to how impressed I was with the Phoenix boat handling around that windward mark. I mean, they hit 2 or 3 really big waves at absolutely the worst possible time when they really didn't have a choice but to go high and thin on their boat speed, and yet they still were able to wig around it. Tony Norris showing a very deft touch on the helm, getting around that mark.
But equally, same applies with the Gladiator, who, you know, the door closed on them and they had to respond quickly and keep the boat moving, and they did the same.
Once again, we see Platoon showing that low mode, able to get maybe just a degree or 2 lower than Gladiator, set themselves up to control the situation here downwind.
Quantum very much in the mix in this race. Then in third, the team that have work to do are Provezza at the moment. So there is our projected point standing. If positions in this race stayed the same to the finish line, it would be a Platoon who take over the lead by 2 points. Provezza dropping to second momentarily, and only 3 points behind them would be a Gladiator. Phoenix moving up the table to fourth, Allegra fifth, Quantum also moving up to sixth, Sled seventh, Alpha Plus, Value and Interlodge. So really everything to play for over the course of what's left of this race.
Yeah, I think we've as you can see, the standings there shift around a little bit, make a few things more competitive, and suddenly there's a few things that maybe were in reach for some teams they didn't quite think they were possible starting the day.
Just hearing some radio chat from the committee boat. Tor, anything significant?
Yes, Andy, we have had a slight course change, so they've moved the bearing to the bottom mark to 270, and also that was a little bit of chat from one of the tacticians. I think it might have been from Platoon telling the chase boats and the TV boats to kind of get out of their way a little bit. Might be a little bit of a sign of the sort of feelings on the boat there. They're just, you know, they want to make sure they've got the cleanest air and there's no waves that are affecting them.
Aside from the ones that are being generated
by themselves,
the wind and the
seas
and the current running against each other.
So still close between Provezza and Platoon.
See Nacho in the back with a hand-bearing compass out there.
That's right, old school, but he's just
trying to figure out when he can cross boats that are inside, and when the good time is to jibe. Of course, they're on starboard now, but jibe over onto port, and they've got to figure out how they can get, you know, past some of these teams
and set up for the leeward gate. But again, just worth making a little point in passing that both the top 2 boats in this World Championship are Rolex designs, which seem to, as much as anything, have a really good speed downwind. In the meantime, Gladiator,
the tracker lagging just a little bit behind Gladiator, has jibed over to port and is headed down toward that leeward mark.
It'll be interesting on board Gladiator. I'm pretty sure that Ray has not sailed to any great degree with Guillermo Parada. He has sailed on Gladiator many times, indeed in England on the other boat. Very much a friend of the Gladiator team.
I'm not sure how much sailing Ray has done at all recently. I mean, his job has been sort of as a coach for Team New Zealand.
Sailing his 12-footer at home with his son, I think.
Yeah.
I don't think how much that helps, but yeah, he said he was really looking forward to getting out there and doing some racing.
Yeah, well, he's certainly not shy here, of course. I mean, no surprise. Years of success in this sport give him all the reason to be confident. So he's happy to sort of send it out here into the corner, one jibe and in, perhaps for the Gladiator team, minimize the maneuvers. And again, as Tor was saying earlier, the importance of that. You know, with these waves, even downwind, it's tough to accelerate. You sort of have to heat it up.
Indeed, just watching this jibe on the platoon, it's so important to accelerate out of the jibe as much as possible. Okay, things getting a little bit heated, and Jordi Calafat there at the back. Vasco keeping a cool head. I think they've made a little bit of a gain back in Gladiator, potentially, just looking at the tracker, but
yeah, you can just see Gladiator there right behind Jordi Calafat there. They're coming into view. This will be an interesting cross. Platoon coming in on starboard. They do have the right of way, so they control the situation a little bit. It'll be up to Gladiator to stay clear. And you know, if you're Gladiator, I don't imagine you want to throw a jibe in this close to the ley line. You would love to keep going forward. So if it's close, you'll probably see them. Well, it's actually Platoon making the decision easy. They're going to jibe here in front of them. Nice positioning there.
they're just keeping it safe. In the meantime, Provezza quite a bit behind them. Phoenix and Quantum to their left. Good acceleration, and this is when the that low mode we talked about will help to
oh boy, and look at there.
Strengthen their hand against Gladiator.
That's a look at, you can tell how powerful it is. Look at the spinnaker on Gladiator collapsing and Platoon just soaking down over the top of them. Really, the you know, Vasco called that jibe perfectly, put himself right in the exact position he needed to be, and is you know, really putting some hurt on Gladiator as they
from the lawn chair, no less.
Tough day to be in the lawn chair. A little bumpy out there to be in the lawn chair.
It's fantastic to see because he's not the usual lion pacing the deck. He's sitting there making precise calls, knowing that that's what he has to do. And I think the advantage very much with Platoon for the meantime.
Great view here of the two boats out in front there. You can see how Platoon has already been able to soak down in front of Gladiator. So they took a position where they were in front and to windward and are now in front and to leeward. That's a significant gain there, 2 or 3 lengths, plus the opportunity to then decide what you want to do. So, you know, they know their strengths. Vasco knows the strengths of the team. He knew that he could put himself in that position where he maybe was initially blocked if he wanted to go back onto starboard jibe, but knew that they could slide down, and now they're in the control. They can decide what gate they want to go to, and they get the choice of where to take this next beat.
There's going to be close boats coming in from that left side, looking downwind, also coming in with pace, and Platoon jibe in front of Phoenix, close the door on them.
And boy, this is going to be
interesting. Phoenix will be forced round the outside, and Still got quite a bit to go to the leeward gate. Meantime, Quantum sailing low. Maybe there'll be a small gain to them.
Well, we were talking about how close the race was at the windward mark. I think it might even be closer at the leeward mark. You know, we've been.
Who would want to be an umpire, eh?
I mean, we've seen, you know, distances of 500, 600, 700 meters between the first and last boat, and now we're looking at 250. So the fleet is compressed a little bit, maybe a little bit of breeze coming down from behind, or maybe the breeze getting lighter as you get down the track. But those top 4 boats are going to be, this is now where the tacticians are playing that game of chess, trying to figure out how to position themselves. You know, Quantum coming out here toward the starboard jibe ley line would seem to indicate
the right-hand mark.
Yeah, wanting that mark.
Anyway, we are at the leeward gate.
Oh, this is a boy, Platoon, tough call here. They had to take down early, and now where are they going to go? They're going to have to spinnaker down. They could do another jibe, which means they've got 2 maneuvers here late in the game. Oh, are they going to go all the way over? Wow, they're going to go all the way across.
They're going to jibe. Yeah.
No, here they go. Sorry, they're into the jibe here, but a lot of time down speed with the jib without the spinnaker downwind. Look at this fleet coming in. This is going to be really interesting, and some of these boats in the middle,
right-hand mark.
Really tough position. Quantum going to get around. Yep. We'll have
Gladiator meantime have kite a little bit in the water. They should recover that fairly easily. They have a Value just behind them up in 4th place. So you got to get that spinnaker out of the water. That is a dangerous position for that spinnaker to be in there. Just inside them, Value. But this actually, in the end, perhaps the Platoons being conservative may pay off for them. But certainly this is hurting Gladiator.
Yeah.
Value getting round and inside. Really, when they did not want that kind of error happening. Platoon stepping clear. Preveza in 6th. They're just getting round that right-hand mark. Gladiator still sorting themselves out by the sound of things. Tor, that was a pretty messy mark rounding.
Yeah, very messy. We were all at the right-hand mark, and there was about 5 or 6 boats all coming round within about 10-15 seconds. I just heard that Allegre got a penalty at the opposite mark. They were around between Quantum and Preveza, so yeah, a bit of a blow for Allegre. You know, not far off the top 4 or 5 on their points, and that won't be good going into this second to last race of the Worlds.
Indeed, I mean, in terms of the World Championship, a little bit kind of sideshow, but really they're challenging for the circuit, certainly to make it onto the podium for the circuit, and so a big points day for them is really not what they want heading into the last regatta of the season. But credit meantime to Platoon, really have come out of that quite nicely relative to their main rivals for the World Championship. Preveza way over there on the right and 8th now.
Well, and Gladiator, of course, their rival in the
Gladiator
race, right?
Self-inflicted, unfortunately for them, with that kite drop of it. I suppose the retrieval line failed.
Those retrieval systems are so remarkable when they work. That spinnaker coming down,
when they don't,
just a second or two. But when you rely on it and it doesn't work for you, it is, you know, awful, as we've seen here. You know, making that takedown, the early takedown, and the 2 jibes, while it looked a little ugly at the time.
For Platoon, yeah.
Platoon working out quite well.
I mean, I guess in that situation, they're looking primarily at what they have in hand over Preveza, and just thinking, well, let's keep it conservative. And I think generally, I'm sure that's the Platoon maxim for the day. To say, when you see Vasco keeping it cool, keeping it focused, and that's really paying off for them just now.
Tor, you had a chance to talk to Morgan Reeser, Olympic silver medalist from here in Barcelona, 1992, the coach of Platoon. What insight did he give you about the team strategy for today?
Yeah, I was chatting to Morgan this morning, and first of all, I was saying to him, what are you expecting for the weather, etc. And then I was asking, what's your game plan? You're going into the final day of a World Championships with just 2 points behind the leader. Like, what do you do? Do you try and go for them? And he said, no, we are going to take it step by step. we're going to sail our own race and let the results look after themselves, which I thought was quite an interesting take on it. You know, some people might think, oh, let's go do a bit of match racing, but it seems to be working pretty well for them here at the moment. You know, they were quite close to Provenza at the start, and they did a bit of covering, but managed to get themselves right to the front of the pack with some really, really nice manoeuvres, and yeah, looking pretty strong now. So it appears that the game plan's working well.
Indeed, from a 3 points lead for Provenza going into this race, they now have a 5-point deficit, 4 or 5 point deficit to the German flagged platoon team. Gladiator only 3 points behind, but looking like their third podium of the season. Phoenix also moved up the table, sailing a very, very nice race for Phoenix too.
Absolutely. They've you know, in conditions where it can be very challenging to hold on to the lead, you know, almost impossible to cover the fleet behind, they've been able to sort of round, well, they were ostensibly first around the windward mark and just about first around the leeward mark, although it appears the platoon has taken over the lead, but they are right there in it, you know, just, you know, meters from the position. And we see, you know, we can see Terry Hutchinson and Quantum Racing actually off the tracker there, coming over to the left side, so they are once again thinking they're going to find some advantage over here, while Phoenix and Platoon work the right.
Indeed, and a quick look at the circuit standings for the year so far. Provenza losing just, it was 25 points this morning. Cut back to 18 for the meantime. I've always struggled with maths. Anyway, you can see for yourselves. But Gladiator looking stronger all the time for the podium. They were just a point ahead of Quantum a couple of days back, and I think were that to play out, then be a super bonus for the Gladiator team. Their best ever season finish. They've been on the podium, as I say, twice this year. And 2016, I think it was, they finished joint top of the table in Menorca, but lost out on countback, and the tactician then was none other than Ed Baird. I mean, Ed, the consummate professional in terms of owner-drivers, managing owner-drivers, managing expectations, but really dropping back into the role on board Phoenix and doing a great job.
You know, the headings we're seeing here, Andy, are 12 to 15 degrees lower on this board, so the breeze has gone right. We did hear that was going to be part of the forecast for the day, as sort of a steady march from a northeast breeze through the east into the southeast. There also we're forecasting a bit of a drop, so
yeah, you would imagine
if you're out here, you're going to
day.
be watching for the velocity maybe to go down and this breeze to keep going right. Probably not what you want to hear if you're Gladiator or Quantum Racing out here on the left side of the course. Yeah.
I mean, at this stage, you know, when we expect that, and that's forecast, the breeze due to drop or expected to drop because of the thermal effect coming in from the south. You'll have the northeasterly and or the easterly fighting the southerly breeze. Then that was a scenario, I think, which was discussed by Juan Villa, just saying, you know, we might struggle to get a second race. Obviously, it looks good just now, and Platoon very much with the upper hand, potentially on course, well, certainly on course at the moment for their third world title and their second regatta win in a row, having won the Royal Cup in Menorca a month ago. But also credit to Value. Value is sailing a very, very nice race. One place ahead of Quantum Racing, powered by American Magic. What else were you learning from Nick Rogers this morning? Stu, you were in the briefing. Obviously, the three teams in the same briefing, third, fourth and fifth at the moment, Gladiator, Value and Quantum Racing, powered by American Magic.
Yeah, you can tell that the Vayu team, I mean, tremendously talented, obviously, some tremendous sailors on there, including tactician Nick Rogers. But I think they're in a learning mode. They've got a slightly older boat, so they know that they're not quite sailing the same platform that some of these other teams are. The boat is maybe a little bit better in lighter air, a little better downwind, so this may be a regatta that has favored them so far. But they are just soaking up a lot of knowledge here from these teams and trying to figure out exactly what it takes to succeed in this level. And I think this regatta has shown them, and maybe the same thing for Alpha Plus 2, who has occasionally found itself while they're maybe in last place in the overall standings. They have been climbing a little bit. They've got a 5th, they've got a 6th.
They're 6th just now. They're sailing a pretty solid race. And as I spoke to some of the team yesterday, just reviewing their season so far, and I think the key thing for them, as much as anything, is they saying, we feel like we belong now. We feel quite comfortable in the fleet. It's all about improving all the little steps, all the little processes to just keep getting better. But they're having an absolute ball and loving it. As you say, even though they're 10th on the table for the regatta, they're really loving being in this top level fleet. And really encouraging anyone else thinking about it to get a boat and get in here and enjoy it and learn.
Andy, I have to correct myself earlier. I said that we were on a right shift here. We actually appear to be on a left shift in this flag. So I think it's something that is favoring Quantum and some of these boats over here on the left side. Again, my math skills apparently are as good as yours.
We're not too bad with words, hopeless with numbers.
But it may be a situation where you can see Quantum slowly sort of climbing back up the leaderboard as they come in from the left side. So when we say a breeze is going to trend to the right, that doesn't mean it's always a steady march, right? It sort of sends the pulse back and forth a little bit. And one of the jobs of the strategists and the tacticians is to find those little pulses and take advantage of that. And Terry Hutchinson may and the rest of the brain trust on American Magic may have found just that, because they seem to be sort of pushing themselves back into, they're back into the top 3 here, and they may soon be challenging with Platoon or Phoenix for top 1st or 2nd.
So in the end, of course, that penalty for Allegra dropping them way down the pack, 4th in the regatta, going into today, only 8 points off the lead. And unfortunately, their worst race of the regatta is going to really cost them.
Well, the same could be said for Provezza here.
No,
currently
indeed.
in 7th, and they are, as we say, in grave danger of losing their lead and actually sort of flipping the script with a Platoon and coming into the final race of the regatta needing to make up 3 or 4 points as opposed to having a 3 or 4 point cushion.
And certainly looking to get a second race away as quickly as possible. However, all credit to Platoon. Platoon doing what we've seen them do so often, which is just keep chipping away, making small gains. And undoubtedly, they know they're fast and have these modes that we've seen. High on the wind, Vasco wants.
And he doesn't want you to wait when you do that. He wants it right now.
So we're at the approach to the weather mark, Tor. Presumably you're on the extension of the ley line.
Looks like quite a duck there for Quantum Racing, American Magic to get around.
Yes, we are, Andy, and I've been taking great pleasure watching them come into the top mark here. Platoon just tacking just below the ley line and really affecting Phoenix in there, which has allowed Gladiator just to come back into them a little bit. So that's Platoon round the mark, the second top mark in race 7 of the Worlds, and Phoenix coming round not far behind in second with Gladiator in third. So Gladiator just probably losing that place to Phoenix with that dodgy drop they had at the bottom of the run. Quantum seemed to be working that left-hand side of the beat like they did in the second half of the first beat. Seems to just be working for them and making a little bit of a gain there. And then Vayu coming round in 5th position there with Provezza close behind them.
That was a very close tack there by Provezza. After one of the umpires are going to be taking a quick look at whether they infringed at all upon Interlodge coming in on starboard.
Anyway, Prevets around in sixth, quite a long way behind their main adversaries, Platoon. Interlodge in seventh. So things so often this season have worked out for the Turkish flagged team. But maybe we're seeing the tables turning very slightly. It's good. I mean, one thing, you know, what happens today is one thing, but really looking forward to the season finale in Puerto Portals next month. And at the moment, the top two teams in the World Championship are also the top two teams on the season standings, and both of them have won in Puerto Portals before. So we're looking forward to a great finale on the Bay of Palma in September. As we said in our previous broadcast, we're looking to launch a little competition on our social media platforms to allow some 52 Super Series fans to join us in Puerto Portals, come behind the curtain and really experience what the 52 Super Series is all about. So do keep tuned on our social media channels in between the regattas and make sure you've got a valid passport.
You know, I think right now, if you're Preveza, who has been, according to the trackers, far down, 8th or 9th in this race, you're now sitting in 6th. You're giving up 5 points. If you can pick off one boat and knock that down to 4 or 3 points, you put yourself in a position to possibly just be in a win and win the championship against Platoon in the final race. So I think Preveza very eager to get 1 or 2 places on this run and, you know, keep their options open for the final race.
Meantime, for sure, it does look like the breeze is holding up nicely as we're on this second and final run of race 7. For those of you who've just been watching today, we started the week with 3 days with no wind, no practice race, and then 2 days with no racing, and it's given us a super compact, super intense program. 3 races on day 1, or what was in fact day 3, or day 4 in fact. 3 races on day 3, day 4, 3 races, 2 races today. So it's been very intense World Championship.
So looking at the projected results there, right, you see just what we have there, potentially coming in here with 1 point between the 2 top boats. I believe that in most of the situations right now that if the results hold, the Platoon would have the tie break. Both teams would have 2 firsts, and then Platoon would have the second to rely on. So currently the tiebreak would be lying with Platoon, but there's quite a bit to go here in this race, and some opportunity for Preveza to pick up a boat or 2 and really turn this into a final race duel.
Indeed, but look at the distance that Platoon have gained. I remember last time down they were just crossing ahead of Gladiator, squeezed down inside them, applied the low mode, and really looking very good for the moment. Meantime, really tight behind, battle between Quantum, Gladiator and Phoenix. When you so Gladiator just holding up Quantum for the moment. Quantum going, Gladiator I imagine will go fairly soon after.
They still have a bit of ways to go here, Andy, to the ley line. So there's a bit of room to work here for Gladiator. They're not in a position where they need to jibe urgently. They can take their time, and Ray Davies and EJ Parada can pick the best moment to come back here when they feel like they have the best wave or the best flat water or just the right puff.
Indeed, Preveza doing the same. Where are you, Tor? What are you seeing just now?
right-hand side of the run, just hanging out with Gladiator here. The breeze seems to be just dropping ever so slightly on this top right-hand corner. I wonder if it's going to stay like that, and if that's what we're... earlier on, I was looking further up the race course, and I thought, oh great, like there's lots of breeze coming down here, but I think the forecast is round about this time for the sea breeze to try and start and try and fight this breeze a little bit. So I think there's some really tricky weather situation going on around us, and yeah, anyone could really take advantage of it. Gladiator really quite liking this side, obviously pushing out quite a lot further, and Provezza with them as well. So maybe they think there's a little shift to be had out here, and possibly again, because they're now split quite far from Platoon and Phoenix.
Certainly value way out to that left side. So really positions, or the mid-fleet positions changing all the time really. We saw Quantum up in 4th, now in 6th.
Oh, I mean, what you're seeing here, look at the difference between the top 7 boats, 200 meters between the top 7 boats. And with the amount of separation in this fleet, that's nothing. I mean, that can be one puff or one slight shift, and that'll evaporate. So this is nervous times, Frank, for all of these tacticians, even for Platoon, because while they're in a good position, they are, they've got quite a bit of leverage on Provezza, who appears to be clawing their way back into a good result, and may be able to carry the lead into the final race.
Indeed, if there is indeed a lead or a lead going to the final race, or sorry, if indeed there's a final race, but we've seen this a few times before with Hamish in particular. Quite likes to go out to the right side and come in with pace. But at the moment, the advantage is still with Platoon, but can Provezza make some gains in the final stages of this second and last downwind? You see a little bit of tension increasing now on the Platoon.
It's so important right now just to simply stay within your own boat here if you're Platoon, right? Because you can't control what other boats do, and you can't control who's going to get between you and Provezza. All you can do is win the race.
That's right, and correspondingly it's about filtering the noise, isn't it, for the speed team and the helmsman, rather than just giving observations of what different boats are doing. It's what's key, what's important at this point. Meantime, Quantum seeming to make a little gain. Provezza, let's watch them on this right side as they come in. Seem to have some pace. Good breeze and moving well. Quick question from Timothy Crooks watching, asking where the tiller is on the TP52. Well, you can see it in that instance there, in the hands of, there's the rudder there just at the feet of Colle Parada, and the tiller in the hands of John Cutler. Hopefully that answers your question.
So right now the real crucial battle here, 3rd through 6th separated by 2 boat lengths and spread across the course. Provezza could see themselves coming across the line in 3rd, in which case they would go into the race with the final race with a lead. They could also see themselves coming across the line in 6th, in which case they'd go in with a small deficit. So just really exciting racing. I mean, a great way to end this thing. It may not be 20 knots and planing down the bay, but the tension is really just intense.
Just watching Provezza and Phoenix closing. If anything, I think this gain coming back to the right side, looking downwind.
Gladiator appears to be
clawing back at Platoon.
Yeah.
Quantum and Value having their own a little tussle on that left side.
Platoon just appearing to find a little bit of a low mode here, that there may be a little bit of a shift or some pressure, enabling them to get comfortably across. boat speed do appear to be quite down. I mean, we were seeing 12 knots more the last run an hour.
So starting to see the finish line. I think Platoon should be okay.
You see Platoon right there in front of Preveza, right?
Just keeping themselves in front of
Yeah.
Preveza. It's a key thing, or all they can do at this stage, really. They're not going to influence the race otherwise. That's the key thing for them. But Preveza making gains, I think, on this right side. Big question is how far Hamish Pepper goes. So watching this finish, it is going to be Platoon taking the race win, their second of the championship.
It's a tough run here for Phoenix, who has dropped at least 3 spots here, possibly 4 on this final run.
So Platoon then happy with that. Vasco watching, they just stop the boat and watch and see what happens behind them.
Yeah, it looks like we're having Gladiator and Quantum sort of, looks like it's going to go Gladiator, Quantum, maybe Value. That is, boy, that is a photo finish right there. 3 boats overlapped across the line. Great result by Value. Then Phoenix coming across there, and then I think we're going to see, oh, it looks like we may even get another boat here inside of Preveza. So Preveza, no, I think they're going to sneak across. So that will be Preveza into 6th. Interlodge into 7th.
So Preveza come through in 6th. That will take them to 27 points. And so the advantage will certainly be with Platoon going into this last race. So difficult race for Preveza. Platoon just sailing it close to perfectly. Nice recovery from Quantum Racing powered by American Magic. Disappointment for Phoenix. Phoenix were up there in the top 2, top 3 round the course. And big picture, disappointing for Allegri getting that penalty. But really the advantage just now is with the double world champions, Platoon, who will lead into the final race. Everything looking cool, calm and collected on board. Vasco say just monitoring how the fleet have crossed the line.
I mean, you couldn't have asked for a better result, you know, realistically, right? Given Preveza's performance so far in this regatta, it's not like they were going to pull out an 8th, 9th, or a 10th.
No.
So a 6th is maybe about the best result you could hope for if you're in the Platoon camp. And they've done that, and they will start the next race with a 2-point lead, if I'm not mistaken. How are my math skills, Andy?
A lot better than mine. But yeah.
Not only do they start with a 2-point lead, but I think in most cases they're going to have the advantage of the tiebreak. Now, if Preveza were to win and get a 3rd bullet, it would swap the tiebreak their way. But at the moment, it looks like Platoon is going to carry the tiebreak into this final race.
Dirk de Ridder there just patting Vasco on the back, saying good job. But they know that they have to stick to their processes, stick to their timings, and expect another race fairly quickly. So it's quick decompression, quick bit of food and perhaps a little snack. We are at just on 1 o'clock local time here in Barcelona. Great view of the city. Host city for the 37th America's Cup. And in the end, pretty good conditions for this final day, Stu.
I think you couldn't have asked for anything better. I mean, given the forecast and given what we've seen the instability everyone was calling for, they got a breeze that, while it shifted around, I think what you hope for is a breeze that may move around a little bit, but relatively stays, centered around the axis you set for the initial windward mark, and it did that. Fair race, challenging race, but one where I don't think the teams are going to come off the water and feel like they were robbed by anything.
Not at all. I mean, I think Preveza, if they didn't have that's actually their poorest result of the week by 1 place. So there you go, as you said, Stu. Platoon then, after 7 races, leading by 2 points from Preveza. Preveza on 25, Gladiator on 28, and they have 6 points between them and Phoenix. Phoenix moving up to 4th on 34 points. Allegra 37, unfortunately, after that 10th place there. Quantum Racing, powered by American Magic, moving up the table with their third, going 2-3 over the last 2 races on 40 points. Sled on 42, Value on 46, Interlodge 54, Alpha Plus on 56. So really a really strong finish so far from Platoon, going 2-2-3-1. Really what you need to close out a world title, which would indeed be their third. Anyway, Preveza then, 136 points, losing some of their margin to Platoon. And Gladiator moving, well, only 2 points clear of Quantum Racing, powered by American Magic, but key for them at the moment on the podium for the circuit. Sled a little bit losing some points on that race in spite of going out in all white shirts for the first time. Allegra in 6th, Value 7th, Interlodge 8th, Phoenix in 9th, Paprec 10th, and Alpha Plus in 11th place. Our team making their debut on the circuit this season. Let's look at Lenny's look back day after his birthday. He's been beavering behind the scenes to produce us this quick recap. And Stu, let's talk about it. Off the start line, it was a very, very even start.
It was a very impressive job by all the teams negotiating the sort of positive current that was bringing them over the line, and also the waves and the lighter winds to hit the line at speed. We had a few boats heading out to the right. Gladiator, there's Phoenix. They were able to work that right. Boats overlapped our closest windward mark rounding that we'd seen so far this race, with every boat rounding within inside of a minute.
Indeed, and we just saw that was one of the key moments, I think, with Platoon just managing to get round and clear the leeward mark. Then Gladiator were up there but dropped their kite in the water, and that really cost them. And then on the second beat, well, Platoon got themselves clear. Phoenix round in second. You can see Preveza there already quite deep, and really Platoon stretched clear momentarily and really came through with a fairly comfortable lead.
A lot of sort of shifting on that run. I think Platoon was able to sort of do the remarkable job of sort of covering both sides of the course and their prime rival in Preveza, and still come out of there with a win. And that is, a tough task. I mean, everyone wants to round with a lead, but holding on to it on a run like that is never easy, and then the Platoon did a very nice job.
It'd be lovely to be on board with the Platoon guys just now. What do you think? What are they saying? They're, I think, really just keeping the focus on the weather, what they feel is going to happen.
Yeah, I think you go back to what Coach Morgan Reeser said earlier today. Take it race by race. Stick with your process and do exactly the same thing. This is not the time to sort of deviate from the routines and the rhythms that have gotten you this far in the regatta.
Indeed, we're just on board or looking at potential world champions, but the good news is we're going to have a second race. The warning signal will go at 1:20. We're going to take a very, very short break and join us again for the thrilling finale to the 2023 Rolex TP52 World Championship. Everything to play for, but the ball is very much with Platoon. So welcome back for the big showdown, the 2023 World Championship title on the line, and Platoon with the advantage after that win in the first race of the day. Breeze seems to be staying in reasonably solid. It does look just a little bit funky. The breeze has been moving around a little bit in between races. We've seen it going consistently right and a little bit lighter, I think, than we saw pre-start in the first race of the day. Stu, what's your interpretation of the situation at the moment?
Well, the forecast that seems to be the most accurate so far did predict the breeze to go to the right and possibly to drop. So I think we'll be looking for a couple of things here. One, for whether there's going to be a real hard fight for that right side, and then what, if anything, happens throughout the course with the breeze dropping. At nervous times, if you're in a strong position here, because the races can go inside out, and these are the most difficult races for people like Platoon, currently leading the event, sailing super well, but sometimes it gets taken out of your hands with a bad wind shift or a hole or things like that. So this is where Vasco Vescato will be really relying on the local knowledge of Jordi Calafat and maybe the cool, cautious experience of Jules Salter to guide him through what could be a very tricky race.
Indeed, and correspondingly, Preveza have the chance in these conditions to certainly overturn a 2-point lead by a significant margin.
And really,
things go in their favour. But it's going to be all on off the start line. Let's have a quick word with Tor Tomlinson, who's on the water, our on the water commentator. Tor, how's it looking on the water?
Hi guys, yeah, it's been a really interesting 15-20 minutes out here. The wind's been clocking to the right. Maria made a call of the race course, but actually then removed the top mark and removed the pin even further to the right. So the breeze is up and down a little bit and it is shifting around, so it's going to be a really, really interesting race. I've been seeing, quite last-minute sail calls. Everybody had, a jib or two on the foredeck, waiting to the very last minute to make those jib calls. And that's going to be so important here. If you think the wind's going to drop down a bit, do you want to be powered up in the lulls, or really important decisions to be made here. So yeah, teams making last-minute decisions on sails, thinking about the race course, and I think it's going to be a different race again.
Indeed, I mean, I think the key thing is, as you say, talking about the lulls, but Stu, but also this chop. You can't afford to be underpowered in this nasty little chop.
Exactly, and the way these sail programs are set up, these teams will all have their light jibs for the lightest conditions, but really the top end of those jibs is maybe around 8 knots, and we're right around that condition. So once you're sort of over the 8, and when you're into 9 or 10 knots, you want to be up a jib, but if you're going to be down in 7 or 8 knots, you want the power out of that light jib, especially in this slop. So making that call, and again, this is when you turn to your navigator or your weather expert and say, what do we got for me? Where's the breeze going to go? Is it going to drop down? Is it going to pick up? And so the strength, predictions for the strength are almost as important as the predictions for how the breeze is going to move.
Let's see how this plays out then on the start line. We have just a minute and a half or so to go. The key thing also is to how Platoon, the final seconds, as Stu said, Preveza and Platoon more or less will just quantum in between them. Could quantum be the key influence? Start gun has gone. A nice start at the towards the pin end of the line for the Interlodge, which I think has got Chris Matthews driving, if I'm not mistaken. And the committee boat end of the line, well, Gladiator started with pretty much the same kind of position as before, but once again not quite got the pace off the line. And the key thing for them is, I think, Preveza are managing to drag through their lee and get a bow out. Really tight here. We're looking at the most left-hand boats. We have Interlodge, Alpha Plus and Phoenix, but really a lot of the action is at the other end of the line with Gladiator, Preveza, Quantum, Platoon all side by side.
Gladiator already going over to the right-hand side of the course with sled, so following the formula that has actually served them pretty well the last couple of races, getting off the line at the boat end, tacking early, and so getting away from the bulk of the group here.
And for sure, Ray Davis never shy of going to the corners, and very, very good intuitive sailor backing his choices, and really seeing a little bit of a similarity with the previous race with Gladiator going out early watching Preveza then have a much better start, much better position to play with early in this first upwind of this deciding race.
So if you're on Platoon here, when you look at sort of the overall scoreboard, it's important to sort of analyze the tiebreaker potentials here. You have 2 points in hand, and provided Preveza doesn't win the race, you also have the tiebreaker. But if Preveza wins the race, Platoon finishes third, then Preveza will take the world title on countback.
It's a little bit down the road, but good to know. And at the moment, there's nothing to choose between Preveza and Platoon. Preveza, of course, need boats between them and the German flag team. We're on board just now with Victor Mourinho there at the back of the boat. World-class sailor from Galicia.
Yeah, it looks like we have a similar situation yesterday when I think a lot of people felt like the right-hand side was the place to be. Everyone tacking over early and sort of parading in there. And this is a little bit about what Nick Rogers was talking this morning, is that even if you think the right's there, do you want to put yourself in a position where everyone is following over you to the right corner, following you over the right corner and potentially boxing you in over there and making the long parade back on starboard all the more difficult?
I did as a question then, is when you go, even if you're the most right-hand boat at the moment, because increasingly what you have is the boats just stacking up to your windward earlier and earlier on the upwind. However, it does seem that the common consensus is the right is strongest.
I think that was the forecast, right? They said potentially the breeze dropping and continuing to work around to the southeast. Now, very sunny on the animation here, but I wouldn't mind seeing the live pictures.
No, but I mean,
give us a view of that weather and see what the sea breeze heating is.
We certainly saw a moment in the previous race when the clouds did open out a little bit, although it does look quite grey.
A little hazy, so maybe the sea breeze heating not as worrisome as it might have been, but still you have Preveza looking strong, heading out there with Gladiator, and working hard to get out to that right. And I think if you're Preveza, right, your first goal is to get around the first mark in as strong a position as you can, and maybe even down the first run, and then on that second beat, that's your opportunity maybe to, if you really need it, if it comes to it, to work and see if you can put some boats between yourself and Platoon.
In the meantime, Platoon just behind. I think they're a small advantage in terms of position to Preveza. Preveza protecting what we consider to be the stronger right. Going across there, everybody on port still heading out to the right.
If you're Preveza here and you feel like you have, 2-3 lengths in hand over Platoon, do you take the opportunity to come back and force them away and put them into a difficult bit of spot of bother, or do you, say keep going forward?
It's a really tough question at the moment, isn't it? If the right is favoured, whether you.
And of course, at the same time, you can't let Gladiator get too far away because there isn't that much between it. If you both have bad races, not out of the question for Gladiator to leap from third to first in this regatta. So,
indeed. In the meantime, I think Preveza have tacked, and just as you were saying, they're going to try and put Platoon away to the left. And it's all about the key moment to make that tack, knowing what's to the left of Platoon and how that can affect Platoon most adversely. So it's a question of timing for Hamish Pepper and Colin Parada in the afterguard on the Preveza.
If you're Preveza, you're hoping you can force these guys back into the blender, right?
Yeah,
you want to get them back into the mix, force them to start dealing with some other boats, and maybe you have just a little bit of an advantage and you can sail more free, and all of a sudden life becomes a lot tougher for Platoon. You can see right there, they seem to be about bow even with Quantum. They're not far in front of Phoenix, and then you still have Gladiator and Sled working out to the right there. And Interlodge, of course, a bit of the wild card in this race, going far left. They could come in at the last minute and sort of slot themselves in between any one of these boats and create a bit of havoc with the windward mark.
Indeed, Quantum forcing Phoenix back to the left. And just now, that move just came at the nice time for Preveza, taking the battle back to Platoon, forcing Platoon back to the left. All the time Preveza aiming to put boats between them and Platoon. And just now the advantage swings back to the Turkish flag team.
Hamish Pepper has the witness protection water drop there. Really not. We can't even read his lips here to hear what he's saying. He's
Exactly.
super secrecy on board Preveza.
That was requested by Ergen Imre. Has to pay extra for that one. But Gladiator then leading as they did in the previous race. Interlodge on the very, very opposite flank of the course.
Early days, but right now, advantage to Preveza in this thing. I mean, you know, if you're Platoon, I don't think you're exactly worried given the downwind speed you've shown and the overall consistency you've had in this regatta, but we know how tight this fleet is.
No, of course, but we haven't seen too many lineups downwind head-to-head between Platoon and Preveza, both obviously Vrolek designs and similar strengths downwind.
I think we're seeing a bit of a right shift here on Platoon. Maybe they've gone from sort of a 60s, mid-60s heading into sort of a low 70s heading, so potentially the right shift that people were looking for is coming to play. But they are crossing sort of the center line of the course here, which means they still have quite a bit on port tack to go. So they've got to find that opportunity to come back, you know, take another bite out toward that starboard ley line and then set themselves up for the rounding. Interlodge.
That being said,
you know,
as you say, right potential right shift forecast. It's a pretty brave call from Cameron Appleton and Adam Bischel on the Interlodge, but it seems to be giving them a small advantage just now.
No, in a position where you didn't have much to lose.
No, exactly.
Why not try and send something out there and see if you get yourself
no
into the
longer
mix?
with parental supervision. But yeah, I mean, they could well do with finishing on a high note. So the key thing then, as always, as we're saying, just the on the water chess match, trying to think 2 moves ahead for Preveza anyway, trying to maximise the number of boats that they can put between themselves and Platoon. So Gladiator then.
Boy, the left really is seeming to come into its own here. You know, Interlodge strong.
Against expectation, we have to say.
Yeah.
The Interlodge never ones to be afraid of doing their own thing, as we saw in Saint-Tropez at the start of the season when they posted 2 wins on the first day of the season. But Platoon there.
I didn't see who crossed the name. Did you see who just crossed the Platoon on port tack?
I think Interlodge, judging by the tracker.
Yeah, so very tight between the top 5 boats here. You know, Interlodge, Preveza, Platoon, Alpha Plus is in there, and Quantum Racing American Magic, all within 4 or 5 boat lengths of each other, and all grouped together sort of on the, not quite the port ley line, but pretty close to it when we take into account the keep away mark that is set 3 or 4 boat lengths to leeward of the actual windward mark.
And Interlodge very much coming into play just now. Be interesting to see, as you said, when the downwind comes, the stronger boats tend to be certainly Preveza and Platoon, 2 of the quicker boats downwind. But always bear in mind that, as we said earlier on in the week, Interlodge was the circuit-winning Azura before. It's still an exceptionally strong boat in this fleet. Alpha Plus, nice mid-fleet position. Platoon probably not really too badly positioned relative to.
I think this breeze is sort of bending back, maybe a little bit to the right here, Andy, which may bring back, you know, Gladiator and a couple of those boats are on the far right, sort of back into the game a little bit. I'm not sure it'll be enough, or it may be too late to get them back into the lead, but
keep it tight.
Keeps it tight, keeps the blender going here, and I think we're going to have another very exciting and very competitive windward mark rounding. And if you're Harm Mueller-Spreer and you're Vasco Vescato and you're one of the leftmost boats, you've got to start thinking about how you're going to get through these starboard tack boats and get yourself to that ley line without getting in trouble.
Indeed, it could be a key moment really, because Preveza do seem to have the certainly the advantage of the group to their right, crossing as we see at the moment Quantum and Phoenix. Now if they can get across there and leave Platoon, who I think are pretty much bow to bow, certainly with Quantum, maybe Preveza will have Quantum and Phoenix in between them.
Yeah, Platoon doesn't have room. Well, doesn't have room much to tack here if they get sit on. They're sort of got to make it through that ley line now.
So Gladiator on board with them momentarily. They're quite far back in the pack now. That right side not coming, working out for them. This left side has been stronger. But Preveza coming back to cover Platoon, I think. We'll see just in a few seconds crossing there, give a good indication of how far they're ahead.
Yeah, so now the question here, see they got to duck here, potentially duck one boat, two, but they're going to go into attack here below American Magic. This is going to be a very thin ley line, I suspect. Would not have left them a lot of room to get around this mark.
So at the top mark then, it is Preveza leading when they needed to respond to that previous race.
Platoon is in a tough spot there, right on the hip of Interlodge, who is just having to squeak up and make the mark themselves.
Interlodge there. Yes, this is Platoon underpowered now, coming up to the top mark. Harm Mueller-Spreer having to work very hard all the time. They losing power and getting very close to that windward mark, just managing to get round Vasco, keeping him right. And they get out of that one, but only just. Meantime, losing a couple of boats.
Very slow, right? As they come around that mark, there are going to be a couple of boats that are going to be in a position to roll
Preveza
over.
leading. Advantage moving to Preveza. I think they'll lose a couple, potentially Platoon, certainly losing ground to Preveza if not positions. And Preveza with the upper hand then, coming away from the offset mark. Nice kite set. Max speed for the wind speed. Now then, Interlodge chasing, Quantum just behind, and Platoon for me still slow. Phoenix going for the early jibe, but quite a mark rounding that one, Tor. Really a Harm Mueller-Spreer almost kind of getting out of jail, but it was really tough.
Such a good mark, and it's left Tor speechless, Andy. I'm sure she'll be coming back with us shortly, but 49 seconds between first and last. The fleet just gets tighter almost every mark rounding. Here we have Preveza here, working down the run in exactly the position they hoped for. We talked about how Platoon did exactly what they needed to do the last race, and now Preveza is doing exactly what they need to do this race: win the race and have a couple boats between them. And in this case, if they're winning the race, they really only need one boat between them and Platoon. So a lot of work here for Platoon to do if they're going to get back into this.
And indeed, Platoon, who's in front of them, none other than the defending world champions and the long time rivalry between Vasco Vescato and Terry Hutchison continues at a key moment of this world championship. Platoon will have to work extremely hard to get past the defending world champions. Meantime, the Turkish flagged Preveza really sailing nicely, confidently down this run, staying with the right. So the advantage is with Preveza back on board.
Yeah, this is the smart thing to do if you're Hamish Pepper and John Cutler and the Preveza team, is stay roughly in the same body of water as Platoon. You do not want to give them too much room to maneuver around here. You've got the lead you need. The last thing you want to do is allow them the opportunity to somehow find a bit of breeze on this course when we know the wind is shifty and potentially going to that right side and get past you.
So Preveza have the championship lead once again. Platoon in 4th or 5th. And to a certain extent, well, actually Platoon have separated away from Quantum. Preveza can do no more at the moment than lead the race, try and win. So there's the projected standings for this World Championship on this big finale, the last race of the championship. Preveza presently leading by just a single point over Platoon. Gladiator in 3rd on 36. So it's a 1 point or 2 points. It's all about whether Platoon can make a couple of boats.
Looks like they got quite a bit of breeze here. It can be deceptive sometimes from the drone, but Inner Lodge there and Quantum Racing above looking quite powered up at the moment.
Platoon in the middle of the picture, really sealing their Preveza, sorry, in the middle of the picture, really sealing their own race.
Yeah, Platoon has a bit of company on that sort of working to the left side, looking downwind. You know, not ideally what you want in this situation, right? You'd love to just
Absolutely
be able to
not. I mean,
have no one behind you sitting on your breeze, and they're in a potential to have a number of these boats sort of hitting them, you know, either in passing as they cross or, you know, for an extended period of time if they're on the same jibe.
On board then with the Platoon. Javier de la Plaza, then the downwind kite trimmer.
Yeah, it does look light, huh? All of a sudden, got that sail, the main sail, quite tight. Spinnaker trimmed in. So that potential breeze drop again. Always watching out for that sort of breeze start falling away. What's going to happen when it does fall away? It just looks like they got more pressure here with Inner Lodge.
Interlodge certainly prepared to go out towards the corners. Work this left side, looking upwind, right side downwind. Pretty sure that obviously Cameron Appleton and Adam Michel feel there's more pressure on this side. And I guess with the positive current, so too that must be within the strategy of Quantum Racing on this side as well. A little bit of shimmer on the water. The clouds opening.
See, look at the grinding there, just non-stop pumping on that mainsail, just constantly. Just keep grinding, and the trimmer easing and then pulling back in, and easing and pulling back in, and working every wave here. We saw that there's quite a bit of sea state, so you know, pumping like this certainly within the rules. Get the boat on a little bit of a plane, get a bit of a surf. You know, every couple meters you can gain by surfing down a wave could add up to a boat length in the end. Still looks like we have Preveza sort of setting up right in the center of the course now. They seem to be in the lead. Interlodge slotting into second with Quantum Racing just up above them with the Amway chute. They're potentially in third, but still got maybe a quarter of this run to go, so time for a shift or a little bit of extra pressure to sort of switch things up.
I think at the end, the way things look at the moment, the left side stronger upwind than downwind. However, Platoon will come out of that corner.
Well, the tough call you have to make here is, was the advantage on the left because of a wind shift, and are we now fading back to the right as the forecast calls? Was it more pressure? You know, what are they seeing up there? And certainly they're reviewing the last beat and predicting what they're going to do this time around, trying to predict at least.
So we go.
There's Preveza going into a jibe here.
Just a point between the top two boats just now. Provezza 1 point up if positions stayed the same through the finish line. I think.
But remember, if Provezza wins, this is essentially they win the tiebreak, which means the platoon would need to pick up 2 more boats and finish second if Provezza wins to hold on to the title.
So advantage with Provezza for the moment. Interlodge have their say on the right. But Provezza are clear leaders by about 30 metres. Good overhead shot. Pressure seems to be quite decent. They're coming into the leeward, towards the leeward gate with Provezza just crossing in front of Interlodge.
Looks like Provezza is setting up to take that right-hand gate looking downwind, head out to the left side of the course upwind, although they still have, of course, the opportunity to jibe. But you think if their goal was to go to the right side upwind, they maybe would have delayed that previous jibe a little bit and just come in on the ley line.
So we're at the leeward gate.
See them start to tension that takedown line, and here we go. Crucial takedown for Provezza. And they're not taking it too conservatively, pushing right up to the mark. Looks like it goes smoothly, and they're going to be able to turn upwind here and control the left side of the course. If that's favored, they're going to be in a very strong position here, especially if they're going to have Interlodge behind them.
Second round Interlodge. Quantum looking at the right-hand mark, looking upwind. Platoon going to come all the way across to this. Well, I thought Platoon were going to come across to this.
They into a takedown again. A lot of time here.
Platoon going kind of in the middle at the moment. Maybe a little bit hesitant, but potentially going to the right-hand mark. Quite a long way to sail across there.
Yeah. I think they at that point they figured their choice was to split away.
Yeah, exactly.
They had to set away from Provezza. You're not going to pass them by following them. We know Provezza is too fast to simply grind them down in this sort of a race course.
So Provezza first, Platoon fourth.
Yeah, Platoon picking up a boat over Phoenix here, but they're still too shy of what they need to be to win the world title.
As we said, the defending world champions, albeit some distance behind on the leaderboard for this 2023 edition. Quantum Racing Powered by American Magic are in front of Platoon and will be a big obstacle between them and the world title. So Interlodge here in second place. Provezza have tacked off.
Well, if you're Provezza, of course, right, you're not going to let Platoon get too far away.
No.
If you think the left is the side to be on, you simply want to make sure that you're more to the left than Platoon is. Platoon coming back, maybe playing a little bit into the hands, but Provezza, but
their options are limited, though, really, aren't they?
Yeah. They may not have had a strong position around that mark relative to American Magic. They may not have had a choice.
Exactly. It's such a difficult decision. As you said, do you follow Provezza and you're a little bit on a hiding to nothing because you're following the exact track of them, or do you go right and you're immediately behind the 2022 world champions and 5-time circuit winners and Vasco's biggest rival for 30 years or so, Terry Hutchison. It's an amazing conundrum there, isn't it? You couldn't make it up for the final upwind of this World Championship. Provezza with a 1 point lead at the moment with, if positions stayed the same to the finish line, Gladiator potentially finishing on the podium. Ray Davis to say we call him a safe pair of hands, but he may be just doing enough to keep Gladiator on the podium. Still musing over the possibility of an emergency family wedding.
You've had a few of those yourself, haven't you, Andy?
No, not so far. Anyway, Provezza then with the upper hand, as they say. Really, there's not too much that they can do. Just keep a cover on keep a loose cover on what's going on behind them, and stay in step with the breeze.
Well, Preveza appear to be giving Platoon quite a bit of leverage here out to the left side. Now they've swapped sides effectively. Preveza, if you call, took the right-hand mark looking downwind, left-hand mark looking upwind, went to the left side for a little bit, crossed over. Platoon came back, we think possibly because they didn't have a great lane underneath American Magic or behind American Magic, and now they've swapped sides. So an interesting call from Hamish Pepper to not sort of stay right on top of Platoon and protect him. But again, if you feel like the right is the place to be, you send it out there and see what comes of it. It's for the most part, sailing their own boat has worked really well for Preveza so far this series.
Indeed,
So-
and again, as I say, always knowing that Quantum are just ahead of them and won't be making too many tactical mistakes up this beat. Platoon just ahead of Phoenix.
Now we have Preveza maybe coming back, so maybe they're just sort of biding their time a little bit here, coming back now in a position to once again sort of set themselves up with a loose cover on Platoon. Not the time to be really clamping on them. They're probably too far in front to really do it. Plus, you'd rather sort of guide them around the course than you would force them another direction and give them opportunity to find some leverage and find a stray shift.
More to the point, I think perhaps I'm really accurate position relative to Interlodge, but if they can get Interlodge to go back into that mix, then that's always to their advantage in terms of how they position themselves and timing.
Right, if you're Preveza, you want to do everything you can to keep Interlodge and Quantum Racing American Magic right where they are in
shepherd
the
them
overall
around, yeah.
status. Yeah.
You can dictate the timings of where they go and when, and that's all to their advantage. But a really, really fascinating final race of these World Championships here in Barcelona.
You can't ask for anything more for the final race of a big regatta like this, to have the top two teams so close and right there. And then not only that, but all the other teams pushing just as hard. Sometimes some of the lesser teams feel it's not their job to sort of play in the final results, but I think here there's no question every team is fighting just as hard in this race as they were in the first race.
Again, and one of the that is one of the aspects that comes into play, because this is the penultimate regatta of the season. Nobody can afford to be conservative here, considering that everybody's challenging for their highest possible position on the circuit standings come the end of Puerto Portals next month. Really, they can't afford to be conservative and looking for mid-fleet results, or just really the end of the season is also fast approaching, and really everybody has to be taking every precious point. We've seen so many times, we've seen places at the end of the season just decided by a point here and there. Indeed, the circuit title decided in 2021 just by a point here and there.
So frustrating, of course, if you're Platoon here and you're constantly just looking for a lane that you can really put your foot down the accelerator and show the speed that's sort of served you so well in this regatta, and yet Preveza constantly sort of maneuvering the pieces behind them a bit like a puppeteer to sort of close down those lanes and make sure that your job is just all that more difficult. It is a fascinating chess match, and you really get a chance to see it when you look at the tracks here, the tracker, and sort of how it's all playing out.
I wonder whether Platoon have gained just a little bit, perhaps relative to Quantum. Just going to tack now, go back onto starboard, go back at them. That's what you see. Really not very much in it. We see 6 or 7 meters on the tracker. Now as Platoon settle.
Good discipline there from Vasco. He's not going to send it out to a corner right now. He's going to keep sort of grinding away in the center of the track, hoping to sort of pick off a boat here. If you can get to third around the windward mark, then maybe you have a chance to pick off the boat and get to second downwind, and you know, probably unlikely to pass Provezza given the speed they've shown in this regatta, but getting past Interlodge and Quantum Racing, maybe a little bit more achievable. You're closer to them, and you've shown good speed over them relative for the entire event.
So Quantum getting closer, I think, to Interlodge tacking. Platoon still coming across on port, trying to pick up some images, hopefully of Quantum somewhere, but
well, now it's getting interesting. Of course, we get up to the top here. Now I think you see Provezza maybe in a chance to really start causing a little bit of havoc here, getting on some boats. You know, it's a bit of a domino effect, right? You tack on a boat behind you, they end up getting on a boat behind them, and it just sort of cascades, and you hope that Platoon gets picked off in one of those cascades by one of the boats that's in front of them, you know, Interlodge or Quantum Racing. I wouldn't be surprised to see Interlodge here in a position to tack on Platoon. Whether they do so or not is maybe depending on how friendly Cameron Appleton is feeling.
And how much he wants to end up in the left-hand corner coming in to what will still be a busy top mark grounding. So on board with the World Championship leader. We have Platoon 3 boats behind in fourth.
Very calm on that boat, right? Not a lot of chaos. Here they go, rolling into attack.
So just completed the attack. We'll get a good perspective on where Quantum are, hopefully just in a few seconds.
You can see, looks like they did a little bit there, where they sort of maybe positioned themselves onto Quantum a little bit, forced Quantum away.
We're having one or two little tracker issues which are causing some heart rates to bounce around for the moment, but just watching Platoon coming across the front of Phoenix.
So currently not a lot of change in the overall standings in this race.
No.
The top five, they're holding just where they were around the bottom mark. And Platoon is just constantly searching for that lane, searching for a little bit of clean air, searching for an opportunity to maybe slip past somebody before they get to this mark.
So Tor Tomlinson, what are you seeing? Where are you on the race course at the moment? We're watching Platoon desperately looking for an opportunity to come back into the two boats in front of them, but Interlodge and Quantum keeping it tight, and Provezza are quite comfortable out in front for the moment.
Hi Andy, yeah, just at top mark here, watching Provezza come in on the starboard ley line. Now it's pretty busy on the port ley line, and Platoon are doing everything they can, but really the other teams are making it really, really difficult for them. I know, as you guys were just saying, you know, everyone else is still fighting for those place in the series, and you know, it's not really on their minds how Platoon are doing in this race. So I actually think they might have lost some places coming up that beat there. We've got Provezza just coming round into the top mark now, and I think it's going to be Interlodge and Quantum coming in behind them.
Yeah, Provezza looking super strong here, Tor. I mean, they've stretched this lead out to 100 meters. Really haven't done anything to wrong. I suspect that maybe Quantum's actually going to swap into second here, as they're able to get the inside position on Interlodge, which means now Platoon is going to have to get past both of those boats on the run if they would like to win the 2023 World Championship.
Indeed, look at that lead for Provezza. In the end, it's not about distance, but that will fill them with a big lump of confidence going down this final run. So Quantum, as Stu said, getting around in second. finishing nice and consistently, then looking at 2-3-2 as a finish for this World Championship. They're not going to defend their title, but really coming out of this World Championship with a great consistent finish. Obviously a big ask for Terry Hutchison and the team to make another change in their afterguard at this regatta, but things definitely gelling, speed coming together. Quantum Racing will go through the entire season with the changes at each regatta, so that's pretty tough. But second just now, Interlodge in third, Platoon in fourth, Phoenix in fifth, and Gladiator in sixth. So can Platoon pull off something magical down this final run? Interesting to see Quantum jibing off early, breaking from the downwind train.
I would certainly be surprised to see Platoon follow Provezza here. That's not their path to victory, right? At some point you've got to separate and hope to drag maybe. Well, it looks like now that the chance of them dragging them away from the fleet is thin, right? If you can drag them out of first place, that gives you an extra boat cushion, and maybe you can pull them sort of a little bit away. But Provezza doesn't appear to have any inkling to fall for that. They're going where they think is best, as they've been doing. Looking forward, you can see the whole group there looking forward, looking back for a breeze. They are, I think, figuratively and literally looking at what's ahead of them.
Indeed. Hamish Pepper just consulting with Colli Parada there, deciding the jibe is required now. Nacho Postigo, the veteran navigator, I don't think he's won a Rolex TP52 World Championship title yet. And he's been with the circuit, as I say, since 2005, or with the class since 2005. But really, they've sailed an immaculate final race just when they needed to, under maximum pressure, having just posted their worst result off the series so far, a sixth place, coming back with a win, just as he did in Saint-Tropez. They had the worst race of the series, the penultimate race on the penultimate day, in fact. And I remember them saying they had a conversation the previous evening and just saying, look, let's just keep doing what we do, sail our best, and see how the cards fall. And they came out on top. But I think, to be fair to a lot of teams, an observer's surprise in Saint-Tropez, but really imposing themselves on this race. Platoon in fourth. Quantum Racing, I think, will come away from this regatta with their heads held high.
Carrying a lot of confidence into the next event. And I think Harry continues to grow into the role as a helmsman on this boat and a leader.
We understand that John Kostecki will be back on board Quantum Racing, powered by American Magic. JK, of course, won the 2 world titles with Platoon.
So something I'm watching here, Andy, is has Platoon gotten far enough to leeward of Interlodge to be in a position to jibe onto them and roll them and potentially pick off one of the 2 boats they need to climb back into second place and have a chance to win the regatta. If they're able to do that here on this event, if they're able to get over the top of Interlodge in this jibe, then it's a matter of whether or not the wind works in their favor relative to Quantum, who seems to be doing quite well out there on the downwind left side of the course. But there's so much leverage here that you have an opportunity. There's a window if you can get past Interlodge. That's the first step, however.
Indeed. Well, that's what we're seeing on the tracker. The tracker is saying Quantum have gained out on that from that early jibe, but that would be a big gain, considering they went round the top mark in fourth.
Here they go. We don't know if that was instigated by a jibe on the part of Interlodge or not, or if Interlodge was simply just going to wait it out. Platoon determined it's time to go back, and here they are heading.
I'm sure that's what we're seeing momentarily with Platoon getting down inside Interlodge. Preveza first, Quantum second, Platoon third for the moment.
Yeah, I think they were able to sort of position themselves well on Interlodge. So they got one. Can they get two?
I think that's a tough ask, against considering that the next boat would have to be the defending world champions Quantum, who really have the bit between their teeth coming down this final run. They've not given away their world title easily, and they're still fighting to the end.
But at least you do put a little bit of pressure on Preveza here. You do make them start to think, you know, what was a relatively safe margin has now somewhat evaporated. You know, you're down to one wind shift here. You know, the Platoon was able to win a little bit on their side, get past the boat that was in front of them on their side. Now maybe the wind plays in their favor and allows them to get past Quantum. So the door is open, not closed yet. It's just open a little bit here, and you know, they're going to work as hard as they can to get through it.
They're certainly going to go all the way to the finish line between Platoon and Interlodge in particular. And Quantum out on that left side coming downwind. They say may still have some say in who wins this world title.
Oh, absolutely. I think they're going to have all the say.
Preveza can't do much more than go through the finish line first.
Looking at Interlodge here on the left, Platoon on the right. So a good position for Platoon. I would say that they are worked their way past Interlodge here in a good spot here. Tracker shows the delta between Platoon and American Magic coming down, potentially putting them back into position here. So never say die. If this is, you have to you put the last two legs here among some of Vasco's finest work if he's able to pull this off.
So that's the projected points at the moment. Platoon and Preveza tied on 26. Platoon would get it.
We think Preveza would have the tiebreaker.
Preveza would have it on tiebreak, wouldn't they?
They have three firsts over two for Platoon,
and potentially winning the last race.
Yeah, well, to the last race if they take this race, right? That would be the third first for Preveza.
But really, it's in the balance between Interlodge and Platoon. I think you can talk about the tiebreak as much as you like, but when we see who goes through the line and the measure of the celebration, who's celebrating, that's the best indicator.
Well, it's tough for Preveza because it's entirely possible they're going to go through the line here and not know whether they've won or not, you know, and that's have to wait it out and see who's able to cross first.
Just 2 meters between Platoon and Quantum Racing.
Oh, here we go. Preveza sort of coming in on their last jibe here.
Nice gain, and both to Platoon and Quantum relative to Interlodge. So our tracker has the bow to bow between Quantum and Platoon.
Now Platoon sort of maybe edging ahead here.
Unbelievable. Just could not make it up.
There we are. We have Platoon there at the bottom right, bottom left of your screen here. American Magic looks like they are jibing. I assume they're jibing up.
And all the time you're at the mercy of the data updates coming off the trackers. It's incredible. Really, my heart rate is through the roof.
Yeah, there we have it. Tracker putting Platoon.
We're completely unbiased, you know. It's but anyway, it's all on between Preveza and Platoon. The balance returning to Platoon momentarily, we think, but anything could happen. Let's have a quick look on the water now. Call that one. Certainly Preveza with the lead, but Platoon coming in there with a really good angle. The Amway kite there.
Yeah, American Magic back on port, which would indicate they do not have a favorable angle on starboard to go back to this finish line. And Preveza, not sure what they can do here. It's tough downwind, hard to really slow a boat down or make them wait in this situation. But you know, they may be doing everything they can to put the brakes on Platoon.
It's certainly much closer between Platoon and Preveza.
Yeah.
In the meantime, Preveza, I think, will just come on to Platoon's line, but this is looking very much like the German team will clinch the world title in the final meters, but is it too early to say that?
I'm going to go with too early to say that, Andy.
It's so close. What an amazing scenario.
Yeah.
Vasco saying, look, let's just keep it cool, keep it tight.
Yeah.
They're on course. Everything to play for in the final meters. Quantum Racing appear to have lost out on that left side, and also Interlodge.
It looks to me like Provezza's got that kite trimmed pretty
Pretty
tightly
tight,
there.
yeah, so
they look to be slowing down, doing everything they can to influence the wind. It's such a difficult thing from downwind. There's really not much you can do.
But I think
they're going to have to go across the line and take their chances here.
It did, but it's looking good for Platoon then.
It is.
In the final seconds, the final minutes of this downwind.
What a comeback.
What a comeback from the German team. They were dead and buried, and look at that. Big celebrations for Müller-Speer's team. They win the World Championship title for the third time on the final run, on the final meters. And really, that is a hard-won world title for Müller-Speer. Dead and buried at one point on the early stages of this race, but a great comeback coming down that run. Great call from Vasco Voscotto and Jordi Calafat. Well deserved. Vasco is absolutely over the moon, and you have to feel for the Provenza team. They did all they could. They didn't make any mistakes coming down that run, and really, what a finale, what a showdown. Müller-Speer then becomes world champion for the third time. Vasco becomes world champion with Platoon for the first time. Jill Salter almost smiling. He tells me I'm happy inside. But what a team, what a team.
Such a remarkable display of poise under pressure there in that final race. I mean, they really just went for it step by step and were able to make it work. Just unbelievable. I would not have put their odds very high around that windward mark, and boy, they did it. That's just
they did. I mean, as we said before, such a multicultural mix of different nationalities, different philosophies, and really in the end it really came to bear. Vasco's flair, Jordi's ability to sniff out the breeze and look big picture, the speed team, Roscoe Halcrow and Javier de la Plaza,
Dirk de Ridder.
Dirk de Ridder on the main sheet.
Tremendous final race. You couldn't have asked for anything more for such an elite level world championship than a race like that, where it really came down to the two best teams at the head of the pack and just all they got.
I don't think they can quite believe it. Just 8 seconds in it. 8 seconds of heartbreak for the Turkish team. Say they had done all that they could. Didn't really put a foot wrong in that race. And it was all down to that final run. Platoon, of course, as we say, that little ongoing rivalry between Quantum Racing's Terry Hutchison and Vasco, and we said they're going to have to work really hard to get past the world champions. They split down their Quantum split down the run, looking for something out on that left side, and that played in the favour in the end of Platoon.
There comes the shore crew alongside the unsung heroes of the team, working as hard as anybody, before and after racing to make sure the boat's set up and is ready to go each day. It's tremendous number of sails and equipment on these boats. I think getting it ready every day is a chore. So, true team effort.
And they're Gerd Haber-Müller, they're the powerhouse Austrian, as we said, the heart of the machine, unflappable. His watchword to the team when they go in the water every day is don't beep it up. And they didn't today.
really, and Vasco, if I'm not
Who do you think
mistaken.
Vasco's calling there?
To be honest, I'm absolutely 100% sure he's talking to his mum. No, seriously, he lost his dad. His mum's not in a good place. And
Oh man, well that's remarkable.
she will be watching.
Oh, good for her. Good for him.
His biggest fans.
Yeah, it seems quite emotional there.
Yeah. So and Harm, I think probably calling his stockbroker, if I'm not mistaken. I said that before as a joke, and at one point, and he came to me in the dock and said, "Yes, I was."
Well,
But
if you
it's
ever,
interesting. I say all credit as well to the Rolex team. They've got top two boats in the world coming across the finish line there, and they're going to be the top two boats for sure, fighting it out for the Circuit Championship. There really won't be too much in it in terms of the differential compared to the beginning of the week. The advantage there still very much with the Provezza and Tor Tomlinson getting on board. And we'll have a few words, I think, with Harm Muller-Spier ideally. Congratulations. Harm winning.
So, Harm, what an end to the 2023 TP52 World Championships. Congratulations. How does it feel?
Oh, that feels really great. A third title in this class, this is amazing. And you could see it on the last day. I mean, it was so wide open. It was, on the first upwind walk, we were clearly second, and we believed in us. We tried to fight until the next day, until the next moment, and believing for the chance, sailing the boat fast. That's it. And finally, we got it.
Yeah, I mean, watching you coming up that second beat there, and we were like, they're in fourth, they've got two boats to get. Is it going to happen? I mean, we couldn't have asked for more entertainment from you guys. And I think Quantum jibing off, and then you managed just to soak below Interlodge. I mean, absolutely awesome.
Yeah, it was a great day. I mean, a great week. But I mean, sorry to say that, but I mean, we have to admit that Provezza is so strong this year. They improved so massive. Congratulations to them as well.
Yeah, awesome effort from them. And, it was so close. It was so close.
It was close. Only 1 point. I haven't checked right now, but only 1 point. Yeah.
Yeah, I believe so. Well, congratulations. I'm just going to grab a word with Vasco, but yeah.
But the good news is nobody's asking if it's 10 points or 1 point. Nobody is remembering it tomorrow.
Well, yeah, exactly. You're the guys with the champagnes in your hands.
Yeah. Thank you very much.
Another Rolex.
Vasco.
Yes.
Have a look over there for me. Congratulations.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
That was absolutely awesome. How does it feel?
I still don't realize. I think that the guys on board did a fantastic job, and we knew that we have to finish second. It was a matter just to stay tighter as possible to the second and the third in the last beat, and wait for opportunity, because as we spoke with Jordi, we don't have to do something stupid or crazy. It's just a matter to, if you have option, just try to have it, and we succeed. So that's very nice.
Absolutely amazing. I mean, we were all biting our nails going up that last beat, and we said they've got two to get. Provezza looked really, really strong coming into that final top mark. Just amazing.
Yeah. It's and we need to admit that Provezza did a fantastic championship. So let's make first of all, congratulations to Provezza, because these guys were world champion up to 200 meters from the finish line, and then we have this opportunity and we get it. But we were looking for this opportunity. It was so to me is well deserved, because we were waiting for this, and Harm did a nice job. He stayed relaxed. During all the regattas. Obviously, we have some Latin spirit on board, you can imagine, but everything's okay. Thank you very much.
Oh, no, it was absolutely amazing. And last year's World champions were almost the ones that took it from you.
Yeah, sorry, I didn't hear.
Last year's World champions, Quantum Racing, American Magic, they were the ones right in your way of this year's World Championship.
Yeah, that's great.
Amazing. Congratulations, Vasco.
and on board the new World Championship winning boat, as Harm rightly pointed out. 3 world titles, 2017, 2019 and now 2023, and really well deserved. I think to a certain extent coming into here with confidence and having won the previous regatta, their one really bad moment was when they had these 2 penalties to do, and that really had to fight back from there.
Yeah, it's self-inflicted because with the exception of that one race, they were the fastest team on the water, consistently in the top 3. And, one thing I'm thinking about is that 2 days ago on the first day of the regatta, we were talking, first day of sailing, we're actually talking about the low mode they had, and there, there's many choices you make when you design a boat within this rule. Where do you want to be fast? And they chose to have a boat that could do well in those sort of lighter conditions downwind. And what do you know? It comes to play that the last run, that is one of the weapons they needed to pull out of their tool shed to get past Interlodge. Interlodge was of course on their side of the course, so maybe they get past Quantum with a ship, but Interlodge they had to pass sort of boat on boat. They had to win that knife fight, and they did.
They did indeed. Platoon then winning their 3rd world title on race 8 with a 2nd place just behind Preveza, but it's 25 points to Platoon, 26 to Preveza. Gladiator get their 3rd podium of the season on 34 points, 5 points clear of Phoenix, who get their best result of the season in 4th. Really quite a strong, consistent regatta all in all. Credit to Ed Baird and all the team there. 4th is good for them. Quantum Racing, powered by American Magic, a little bit of an up and down start to the regatta, but finishing 2-3-3, showing great potential and coming out with their heads high, heading to Puerto Portales. Allegra then finishing with a tough 10th and a 7th today. Really not what they wanted, but still contenders for the podium. Sled in 7th, Value 8th, Interlodge 9th, and Alpha Plus in 10th. And the learning continues for the team from Hong Kong, but the circuit title, well, it's Preveza then on top by 18 points, exactly where they started the week with, exactly where they started the regatta with. Platoon in 2nd on 155 points. Quantum Racing on 3rd, moving just 1 point clear of Gladiator for the moment. So that's going to be a fantastic finale in Puerto Portales. Sled in 5th, a little bit further behind, 13.5 points behind Gladiator. Allegra, close battle then for 5th and 6th between Sled and Allegra, have been great contenders through the season so far. Value in 7th, quite consistent at times, a pretty decent regatta at times for them. I think came away with 3/4 over the course of this week, and learning all the time. Interlodge in 8th, Phoenix 9th. Paprec will be back with us in Palma or in Puerto Portales next month, and Alpha Plus in 11th. So a real finale in prospect in Puerto Portales, but the advantage really is Stu with Preveza, 18 points in it.
Yes, they lost the battle here for the World Championship. But in terms of setting themselves up to win the war, you have to say this was a win for them, because they go through 8 more races and they lose just a single point in the overall lead. I think they went from 19 down to 18, which means they now have at most 10 races and 18 points cushion. So they're set themselves in a good position. This will sting, but nothing will make up for that like an overall title in less than a month.
Indeed. So do join us in Puerto Portales in September for the final regatta of the season. It's been a thrilling season. Preveza with the upper hand. Stu, thank you so much. We will look forward to seeing you in the US next year in Newport. Hopefully we'll have the full production there. But thank you so much for your help over the course of the week. Let's look at the highlights, knowing that Platoon Harmwheeler Spears are the new 2023 TP52 World Champions.
You're like a circle that floats around me, keeping me safe and sound. And when I fall, you tied a rope to me. You're blessing me every day. I was down with an illusion, like a sparrow with broken wings. But now I shine with your reflection on me. I'm getting back up on my feet.